presentations and some presentations from officers. So the first item is the Karakia. I'd ask Charlotte to read the Karakia. Thank you.
I oha ki runga ki a ranganui, I oha ki raro ki a Papatuanuku, Turukina ngā mea kino ki te pai atia, uhia mai o korowai aroha, hi taonga ma mātou ka puta ki te waio, ki te o marama, homie huie taikie.
Thank you, Charlotte. Are there any apologies? Councillor Philippa, okay. Thank you. Councillor Philippa Baker-Hogan, I'll just move that they are accepted. Is that up there? That the Aspirations and Projects Committee accepts the apologies of Philippa Baker-Hogan and grants leave of absence for the... Gee, my eyesight's got to be better than this. For the meeting.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, at the risk of being a pain, is Philippa actually a member of this committee?
Well, I'm pleased you've raised that because I wasn't sure whether whether we should be accepting an apology from someone who's not a member.
She's not actually a member.
Okay, no, she's not. So we'll just cross that line out, Diane, please.
Just won't.
Can I just say that this is a meeting that's open to all members of the council, all elected members, and if any member is not appointed to this committee, the option is there to communicate with the mayor and ask to be appointed on this committee. No one should be excluded from the committee if they wish to be on here. Okay. So the next item is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Thank you. No declarations of interest. Item 4, confirmation of minutes of the Aspirations and Projects Committee held in the Council Chambers on the 9th of May 2023. Are there any issues arising from this, these minutes that members wish to?
Thank you, Chair. Just confirmation that I am a member of committee and I was present at that meeting, if that could be noted and corrected.
Yes, I think that's been handled, Diane, hasn't it? Yes, thank you.
But I will amend the minutes to reflect that.
Okay, thank you. If there is no further discussion, I will move that the minutes of the Aspirations and Projects Committee meeting held on the 9th of May are confirmed as a true and correct record. Seconded by Councillor Ross. Those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. The next item is item 5.1 on the agenda, and this is going to be introduced by the Council Deputy Chief Executive Lance Kennedy and Trish Taylor-Pope. So if you come to the desk, please, wherever. Thank you.
Kia ora everyone. Thank you for having us along today to talk about the community-led projects. So we have two groups that are going to be presenting to us this morning, and we're going to let them present first, and then we will go through the report from there. So the two groups are the Surf Lifeguard Service, and we have got Duncan Sinclair and Matt Newell will be presenting to us, and Matt is going to be presenting via Zoom. And then the other group we've got is the Men's Shed, and we've got Ivan Stick, Bevan Chilcott and Bob Smith, who's from Rotary, and they'll be presenting to us as well. Okay. Yep. So I'll hand over to Duncan.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you, Duncan, for presenting this today. I think we're all very aware in this room of the valuable service of the surf club that provide for the community. There is a lot of support at this council, just as there is in the community. And I believe that Matthew is the chair, is that right?
Yeah, Matthew is the chair of the building subcommittee and also holds roles within the main board of the club as well.
Yeah.
So he's based in Taupo at the moment. So
Oh, is he?
he'll be zooming in hopefully sometime.
Yeah. Hi, I'm zoomed in. I can hear you guys.
Can you see us, Matthew?
Yep, I can see you.
We can't see you. Oh, there you are. Oh, so
Yeah.
welcome, Matthew.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, so over to you, Duncan.
Right. Thank you very
Or
much.
Matthew.
Thank you very much for having us here this morning. Yeah, as noted, my name's Duncan Sinclair. I'm here as a parent of one of the lifeguards and also as a member of the building subcommittee. One question I do want to ask first is if you could just put your hand up if you've actually been out to Castle Cliff Beach.
Yeah.
Awesome. Almost. Well, yeah. Excellent. I think we've got about 20 minutes to present. So the first thing I wanted to do was just make a request of you actually, and just wondering if you could close your eyes and think about that very first time that you ever went out to Castle Cliff Beach, whether it was as a child or as an adult with your own kids or just out there on your own or with friends, and just share that moment or that memory with the person sitting next to you, and just take a couple of minutes to do that.
Yes, my first memory, Duncan, is we used to go out there with our toddlers and light a little fire and cook sausages, and we thought we were doing quite okay. But then the Chronicle had a front page story about and had a photo of a little bonfire and about the delinquents that went out there and lit fires on the beach. So I was in my first term as a councillor, so I had to keep my head down. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks very much for that. I think it's fantastic actually to reflect on why we all have enjoyed generally the beach out there, Castle Cliff Beach. The water out there is an amazing thing, and it has the ability to give us life, and add to our lives in so many different ways. But it also has the power to take away our lives. And as you know, from the Surf Lifeguard Service, we're obviously very aware of that every day out there. Just a quick potted history of the club. It started back in 1911 in a slightly different guise, but doing the same purpose. And so its primary purpose has always been life-saving, saving lives out there and making it safe for the community. The club rooms themselves were designed by architect Reginald Tallboys in 1956. I just have to, as a disclaimer here, I am an architect, so that's why Mr. Tallboys is so important here. And it was funded and built by the community, and I think that's a really significant part of it. Pretty much, it's the idea has come from the community, it's been supported by the community, it's built by the community, and it still is. Currently, the club provide beach patrolling services over 2 beaches, at Kaiwi and also at Castle Cliff, although Castle Cliff is the main branch. They're working with search and rescue operations with the police. They have junior and youth beach education programs, and certainly our Nippers program at the moment, that's for the wee kids, is extremely popular. We're very lucky there. They offer water safety training, competitive life-saving sport training. They compete all around the country on behalf of Wanganui, and community education programs as well. So if you've been out there recently, you'll probably notice that the buildings are a little bit dilapidated, if we're being polite about it. Some would argue that it's reached the end of its serviceable life. So far it's survived 67 years, so it's not doing too badly, but it's time to reassess that. The benefits of a new facility out there, I think one of the primary benefits really is to make Wanganui a more desirable place to visit. Certainly when you go to a place and it's looking clean and well presented, it gives a good impression of Wanganui, and as Wanganui's main beach, it's a significant building in that area. Also provides a safe environment for recreation, and if you're coming from out of town or you're just heading out there with your family, you want to know that that enjoying that environment is a safe one. Socially, it offers community participation. It's a very family-orientated organisation. It's built on that history, so almost as long as Wanganui's been here as a town. Provides purpose to strengthen networks and support within the community. So it's a really good networking place from that point of view. Environmentally, I think is a really important aspect of it. By encouraging our young people and all of us actually to engage with the environment, that the love and the enjoyment that we get out of that encourages us also to take care of our environment. And as we're acutely aware here in Wanganui, that's an extremely important thing. It also generates jobs. That's not a bad thing for the economy. Keeps us going. Saves lives. That's a good thing for the economy. And reduces healthcare burden, obviously. If we can keep people out of hospitals, then that's a bonus. And increases mental health well-being for our community. So we all benefit from that one. Culturally, it demonstrates shared beliefs and helps to celebrate our shared history out there. So what we're doing out there at the moment, or what the club has been involved in, is engaging with some of the organisations out in that direction. Progress Castlecliff, the Ngaringaringa Waiwai community consultation. We've been attending those meetings as well to get good feedback from different focus groups in the community. The Board Riders Club is one of those. The Council Coastal Action Team, thank you very much for their support. They've been great to work with as well. And local businesses out there as well have been really supportive and have been working with us already. We've already have some funding supported by Surf Life Saving New Zealand. They've provided some initial funding, and that's supported the creation of a feasibility plan for the new building. And there's also a number of other opportunities for funding that have been identified, and many of those have been engaged already. The development progress so far, Veros have provided this feasibility report. It's 370 odd pages. They've done an assessment of the building, funding opportunities. They've also covered some proposed suggested designs, or at least different scopes of design, put budgets to that for us. So that's been extremely helpful. Veros have been doing that for surf clubs all around New Zealand, so having their expertise in behind is significant. As a club, we've identified a preferred building site for the new club rooms, and that's taken into account the potential new four-dune development, so that it would work for that, and also if that didn't go ahead. So we are at the beginning stages now of developing the brief, the design brief, and fleshing that out specifically for our club, and the design work will follow on from that. So I guess one of the most important things we're here for today is to invite the council as stakeholders to participate in this development process and realise the full potential of what this project can bring to the wider community as well. The opportunities for the council here involve participation in the exploration of that potential, beyond just being a surf club. Number two, approval to occupy a suitable site that's really significant for us, obviously. Number 3, commitment to operational funding as a key partner. We really appreciate that support, and we couldn't provide the service that we do without that. And the commitment to ongoing support is a significant definer of the viability of the project and of the club. And of course, within the next 2 to 5 years, a commitment to capital support for the build project as well would definitely be appreciated as far as the long-term plan goes. The estimated build is in the $5 to $7 million range, depending on the scope of the project and some of those other aspects that may or may not be brought into it. And that concludes what I wanted to present. Has anybody got any questions?
Thank you, Duncan.
Oh, sorry, just before I hand over. Matt, have I forgotten anything?
No, you did well. Yeah. So yeah, obviously, I think we've presented to most of you before about the feasibility study assessed that the current building was not feasible to refurbish for multiple factors, and so the recommendations are to go to a new build to obviously for further growth. Our club has grown substantially in the last sort of 5 years. In terms of membership, we could almost say they're probably doubled in the last 5 years. 5-10 years ago, we were 10 years ago we were quite big and we died down, but now we've grown quite a lot, especially with our junior surf program. In terms of the beach use, obviously during COVID times, things died down a bit. But in the last 2 years ago, that we take statistics between people between our flags, and we had an increase of over 11,000 people between 60 days between our flags 2 years ago. And last year was another increase of almost 8,000 people. So you can see how many more people are using our beaches, every year. And so we need to make sure we accommodate for them in this new building facility. So obviously what we're presenting today is inviting the council to be a key stakeholder. We want to be put onto that long-term plan to help us get this project over the line. That's it.
Well, thank you, Matt. I'll open it up for questions now. We aren't here today, as you're probably aware, to approve an application. We are here to listen to the application and to ask any questions to clarify the item, the application that you require. That will then go forward to the officers and through the process of the long-term plan. Peter, you've got a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Membership is at what stage at the moment? Or numbers?
I'm going to defer to Matt on that one.
Sorry, what was the question?
The amount of membership, or you said it has doubled, but if it's from 2 to 4, it's doubled, but it's still very little.
So we've just switched over to a new year, financial membership year, which started on the 1st of July. So we're currently going through the renewal process, but we're up there to probably 150 to 200. But yeah, we're currently again, everyone has to renew from the 1st of July. So we're in that renewal process, so that will go up. But yeah, around say the 150 mark at the moment that have already financial members.
Cool. And
half of that is made up of our junior surf and youth programs alone. So it's a big part of our club.
I presume that the parents are all members as well.
No, we're trying to push for more members. So majority of that, when I say half, is just the kids alone. We're trying to push for more parents to get signed up as well. But the majority of that is just the kids.
Okay. The second question is, you mentioned that the Wanganui District Council supports it operationally at the moment. And
yes, so
so that amount is approximately what?
We have just got the increase. I think it was 112,000. I had to check because we got, obviously that was increased from the annual plan. But yeah, so we have a contract with the council to provide a life-saving service at Kaiwi and Castle Beach over summer, and that is to provide a professional life-saving service. We actually do have one of the best professional services in the country. We have a very good way of running it. We do work closely with Surf Life Saving, but we have a very well-renowned service that the council gets very good value for dollar for providing our service.
I'm sure it does, and I fully support it. But in the future, do you see this amount increasing because of the new building and the whole concept increasing, or staying the same?
The building itself, not operationally. The only thing that would affect that is in terms of the only thing is how the coastal action plan and the 4 June works. That could affect how we're operational, but that's separate to the building. I'm just working with the coastal action planning team at the moment about getting a safety survey done by one of the coastal scientists around how the operational side of things. But in terms of the building, that won't affect the operational funding because we still have the same amount of guards. The only thing that will require more lifeguards is if the beach becomes more dangerous or harder to handle with the number of guards we have, and that would be due to the coastal action plan, but which is a separate project we're working on closely with the council about that.
Okay, thank you.
This doesn't tell me the order that I see. Councillor Michael Law.
Thank you, Chair. I guess there's a little bit of confusion for me about. Let me just clarify. The of this project is a capital support for a $5-7 million building that would house the life-saving people. Cool. That makes it easy for me. Cool. So yeah. Push aside operations, push aside niceties. It's $5-7 million capital support for a new building that will allow you to grow and create more members, more income, more jobs, that kind of thing. And what is the percentage of external funding that you believe would be applicable?
It's hard to tell at the stage. So we've had funding from Surf Life Saving New Zealand get 2.75 million from central government, and it's there as a Kickstarter for projects. Obviously, there's 75 clubs in the country, so that doesn't go very far, and it's a Kickstarter to get projects going. To go and get the feasibility studies, and we've got another 156,000 to get our designing and consenting process, and we're hoping to get it. I've got another application in currently, hopefully for another 50 to 100,000 to complete that consenting process. Once we have our plans and consent, we can actually get accurate figures, prices to then go to funding providers. In previous experience with funding providers, if there is a backing support of, say, Surf Life Saving New Zealand and the local council, funding providers are more likely to contribute more or back the project more because they have have a bit more support. If a funding provider sees that the council are going to supporting the project, and we're able to come up with some funds, they would be more likely to support the project more, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. So the business case will be about support and the occupier of the land, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And that allows you to go to fund the market properly. Thank you for that clarity. That's awesome. Thank you.
The current feasibility study that we have indicates, or the plan according to that, is that the majority of the funding will come from elsewhere. But there is a portion of the funding hoped for from the council as an indication of solid support.
Thank you.
And probably, to add on to that a little bit as well, it's again in terms of the scope of the project. There is, it depends on the scope of the project whether we focus on core facilities or do we look at the public toilets, public changing rooms, or a community room that's available for other organisations like Progress Castle or other organisations to use. yeah, that comes as well. It comes back into the council, how much the council want to support it and contribute other facilities into one.
Thank you. Yes, I can allow another 10 minutes for questions, and then we'll have to move along. This screen, I don't think is the order that people press their buttons. So I'll just take Councillor Fallon next. I think you've had your light on for a while.
Thank you. I'll try to be quick. What would be the possible end date, useful life of this building while this is going on, or if support is not there from different stakeholders? What is its future in terms of years?
The existing building, you mean?
Yep.
That's a great question, because I would say it's at the end of its safe, useful life.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The figure of $5 to $7 million, if I read my readings correctly, that figure was mentioned as being estimated in 2019, pre-COVID situation. So one would anticipate that when you do the scoping and the costings, it's going to be a lot more.
There's definitely the potential for that, certainly given the current economic environment and within construction in particular. But as you know, as indicated by the breadth of those figures, it significantly comes down to how much extra services or not are included within that building. So that, as Madam alluded to there, the opportunity to provide public bathrooms, toilets, or a rentable space puts it at the higher end. Without that, it comes back to the lower end.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Question 3. This project is on the assumption or desired hope that this be built higher up and that the car park currently in front will be surrendered to the ocean as a foredune. That's part of the desired situation, correct?
Our club's preferred location is directly in front of the existing site, the existing club rooms.
Right, thank you. And my last question is, because Progress Castlecliff is listed as a group of significant interest, and the Duncan Pavilion does have a demolition letter on it at some point between now and 2030. Am I assuming that in this build there's some sort of community aspect that is wider, in the sense of the building scoping design may have a meeting room for community which may or may not be run by Progress Castlecliff or the Surf Life Saving Club? Is that correct?
That's definitely one thing that we want to explore, and as indicated by that scope of value of build price, that would include something like that.
Thank you. I'm done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ross. And so the order will be... Oh, have you dropped off here?
I did, but
Okay.
can I just make a point of clarification?
Yep.
My understanding is that the Duncan Pavilion is at the end of its life, but there is significant hope and desire to potentially retain it in some way. So not necessarily a demolition, yet to be determined.
Sorry, can I just add to that? We've asked to see that letter and we haven't actually seen it. We've got a copy of the engineering report that was done a few years ago, and that's not what it states. I've spoken with the engineer. They indicate that there's they've outlined a 10-year maintenance plan that at the time was estimated to cost around $90,000, and that would actually maintain the building. So I'd just like to make that clear from all the information that we've received from the council and the reports available to us. We've not seen anything that's indicated that the building needs to be demolished. That's the Duncan Pavilion.
Thank you. So we have... Did you want to... Okay. So the order is Deputy Mayor Helen and then Councillor Kate.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. So I guess we'll be asking for clarification from staff around the future of the Duncan Pavilion, because I've got a different understanding, so that's some consideration. What is the real appetite of the Surf Life Saving Club to actually incorporate within the building some community use?
There is a desire to do that, and timing really is one of the issues there. Certainly, when you look around the clubs elsewhere around the country, that is often a significant part of the club. Okay. As a building.
And the extent to which community use is included would be determined largely by council's involvement. Is that the way you're looking at it?
Yes, that would be a significant part of it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Either
And,
council, either
and
by
funding
council
should be a
or
big issue. Yeah.
What was that? Sorry, what was that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Obviously, yeah. The sort of involvement and the funding, comes down to obviously we are, to answer probably a couple of questions. Obviously, we are on a semi-tight timeline. Our building has been identified as urgent. So it comes down to how quickly we can get the funding to do the project. The club, at our AGM 2 years ago, the club moved that we work with Progress Classic and the council to do the best we can to include public spaces. So we really want that. But we are also thinking of money. It comes down to money, how much money we have to, and how quickly we can get it to be able to provide those services. And that's why we're asking the council to help us achieve this.
Excellent. So council really need to make a firm decision on what they want and what their contribution will be, and then you can get on with finalising the design and the costings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, just one final question from me. Duncan, the wave action and the risk from the sea on that site, is that, what consideration has been given to that in a like $5 to $7 million build on that level?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really good point. Actually, we're in the fairly unique position here in Wanganui, or in Castlecliff in particular, where the sea is actually moving away from us, not towards us. Sea level rise generally around the country is bringing the sea closer to our clubs, and as you will have seen in the newspaper, a lot of them are falling into the water and needing to be rescued because of the I think it's called littoral drift, longshore littoral drift, where the sand is essentially being washed down the coast, which is one of the reasons why Kaiwi Beach is actually creeping back in towards the land. And as it comes down the coast, the formation of the North Mole in particular is actually building the beach out. So if you look back 160 years, I think at the mouth of the Wanganui River, the coast was actually almost 600 metres back from where it is now. And when you look at that in an aerial view, you can almost pick the line. So there's significant growth, and certainly just within our lives, if you recall where the concrete bunkers are, they were right on the foredune originally, and now they're almost 100 metres, back from the coast. So we have that opposite problem. We're sort of chasing the water down rather than the water chasing us.
Interesting. Okay, no further questions. So thank you very much, Matthew and Duncan, for that presentation. As I said, the officers will take this forward and into the long-term plan process. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks very much for having us.
Good. So we'll move into the next presentation from the men's shed. Ivan, Bevan and Bob. So if you'd like to come to the front there, you could move one of your chairs over if you like. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Charlotte.
Well, good Good morning, all.
Good morning.
I'm Ivan Stick, shed manager of the main shed. Bevan is our chairman of the main shed, and Bob is from Rotary. I'm not sure how many of you know about the main shed, realise what we do. Maybe I could just give you a little bit of history.
Excuse me, can I just ask you to move the speaker a bit closer, the microphone a bit closer to you? That'll be fine. Yeah. Good.
Maybe I could give you a little bit of history. I'm not sure how much you folks know about the organisation. The Men's Shed organisation was started in Australia in the mid-90s because the medical profession were very concerned about the mental health of men over 60 years of age, particularly in the rural areas. The organisation, the Men's Shed, the organisation is now worldwide. We've had visitors from Ireland, Canada and other places, and they all have the same purpose. Men's Shed was started in New Zealand in 2007. Our Wanganui shed was established in 2012 in the old Ucol complex, Wickstead Street, and was there until we had to vacate at short notice at the end of last year. Where we are now was the best building we could find at the time, and is way far too small for our needs. There is some equipment we can't set up because of lack of space. Until we shifted, we were self-supporting financially, and we didn't ask for funds. We were granted a couple of machines, which was very good. Self-supporting, but now it's a little bit different. Our standing charges where we are has risen over double. We're in a different ball game, but we're adjusting and managing successfully. A lot of councils across New Zealand are very sympathetic towards the Men's Shed organisation and are very helpful in any way they can be. E.g., example, rents $1 a day, consent services, etc. This is a fact, as they realise the value of the organisation in keeping the citizens healthy in all aspects. Keeping the people in their own homes, taking the pressure off social housing, the health system, etc. When one retires, generally when people retire, the ladies have more contacts, more things to do than men. You work all your life, and then when you stop, it's sort of, what now? What do we do? When one retires, one has to have something to do mentally and physically to occupy one's self, as you just can't drive an armchair all day and rot away. Our membership is growing. Currently, we have about 50 paid up members. We are entering into a new financial year, and just this last 10 days, I guess, we've had 6 new applications for tentative members, which we discuss tomorrow. The new membership are discussed at the committee meeting, which is tomorrow for us. And we will, the way it's looking, we're going to have to consider more opening days, because the restraint that we have is room for people to work safely and do things. People come to join. I say to them, if they speak to me, I say to them, well, if you have a project, you can come and do it. You can get help to do it. Or you can come and box in and do something else that's going on. Or you can come and have a yarn and a cup of tea. It's to keep people healthy, keep them active, keep your minds going and keep your hands going. That's basically the mean shit in a nutshell. And I guess you've read the paper that has been prepared. Hopefully our outlook is a permanent home for the men's shed. We do have both men and ladies, and they're all good value. Some sheds won't have ladies, but we do. And as I say, they're all good value. And if we can get ourselves a permanent home, it's been proved by other sheds built through the country, new ones. There's a few new builds of late, the last few years, that where you have more room, better facilities, your membership grows. And I see that the outlook for the city is a growth of people coming in. Our city will get bigger, and as the city gets bigger, more people, there'll be more older people looking to do what we're trying to provide. It's not only for our generation, it's for the generations coming behind us. So if we can have a permanent home, I feel it would be good for the city, be good for mental health, be good for health and well-being of the people.
Thank you, Aaron. I noticed from the application that you are requesting council funding for site access and provision of services and car parking, and you're talking about having a building on Hanley Reserve. Can you just focus in on that aspect? Because as you know, changing the classification of a reserve to either a commercial or residential use is not a short process.
Rob, Councillor Rob, sorry, I think property, it's already okay, but you'll have to check property.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Okay. They know about this.
We were approached, initially we were approached by the Camera Club. They operate in the old club rooms. They said this ground, the rest of the ground is vacant, and we don't want to maintain the lawns. We don't want to keep upkeep. That was the initial.
Well, that's the site that the Camera Club are already on, is it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they're
So that's not the reserve.
It's the bowling green.
the old ex-bowling green that we're looking at, and we're looking at building on the racecourse end of that bowling club or bowling green. We're probably on day 2 of a 1,000-day journey. We're just starting, tentatively starting. We've got to start somewhere. I've approached some of the building firms for quotes, yesterday's quotes, last week's quotes. Not where we are. We have 3 years. The building we're in, we have 3 years, and then that building has to go. The land belongs to Powerco. Powerco wants the land back, so we have 3 years to organise ourselves financially to see financially to see if we can do it.
Thank you. Bevan and Bob, did you have anything you wanted to add? If not, I'd like to move into the questions. No.
Thank you, Rob. It's been a great pleasure. I've been associated with the Meeting Shed, and it was interesting. I went to a conference, and as we talk about ageing, they regard a person as ageing over the age of 55, and the worry is early cognitive impairment or early Alzheimer's, and the greatest prevention of it is not to have social isolation. So moving on to the building, it takes up, we've been offered 60% of the land from the Camera Club, who have the main lease. The building would go down probably about 1/3 the size of the from the boundary to about 1/3, and then the middle third would be between the Camera Club, and that'll be for a parking area, etc. And the other important thing is that we're involved with Rotary, who need an area for book storage and distribution and breakdown and costing, etc. And the idea is to have like a hub there as well, common access to things, and have people use it on off days. We've got another group, the green bikes, who want to manufacture bikes for the community. They're very keen in coming with us as well.
Okay, thank you. Bob.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent, for the opportunity to speak. I just want to say a little bit about Rotary and Rotary's involvement in the community, and then I'll just add a little bit about our support for this community hub concept. Rotary is primarily a service club. We're the oldest service club in the world. Rotary was established in 1905 in Chicago, and it came to New Zealand in 1924 with the establishment of the Rotary Clubs of Wellington and Auckland. And soon after that, the Rotary Club of Whanganui was established in 1924. So next year is our centennial year. We will have been in the city, Rotary will have been in Whanganui for 100 years, and we're planning some major celebrations next year. Service is embodied in our motto, service above self, and in all of our objects of Rotary. So we're here to serve. So we have undertaken many significant projects that have benefited Whanganui over the 100 years that we've been here. And there are too many to mention, but for our 75th Jubilee, we raised $75,000 for the development of Majestic Square. We've been involved in Bushy Park, we've been involved in Kauai Park. More recently, we provided $30,000 for the fitness station on the riverbank. To do this, we've got to raise funds. And one of our major fundraisers used to be the giant fair and auction at the Boys and Girls Gym Club in Springvale, and that was a major fundraiser for both Rotary and the Boys and Girls Gym Club. And in 1993, another major project was the Rotary clubs in Whanganui, in conjunction with the construction industry in Whanganui. We built 2 relocatable houses in a weekend, which were used for the administration of the Masters Games by the Masters Games Committee, then sold to the Boys College and used as accommodation, and the proceeds of $100,000 went to raising a CT scanner, which was donated to the hospital and owned by the iCare Trust. So we've had a major involvement in the city over the last 100 years. Our current major fundraiser is the book fair. It started about 10 years ago. It's really developed over the years. We regarded it as a fundraiser, and we now think it's a community service. The community look for this. They want to know when it's happening, and we have books dropped into us just about every week. Currently, we're working out of the All Saints Church Hall in Whanganui East. We've probably got 40,000 books stored there at the moment, and they just keep coming in every day. And we have a team that meet there every Wednesday, and they sort and price them. We have equipment, we have trestles, we have trestle tops stored in a container over in Putiki. We have a lock-up in Whanganui East, and we have various garages around the city which store our equipment and our presentation items and items of historical value, really. So we would be really looking forward to establishing somewhere in a secure and permanent location, and somewhere where we can use community areas such as tea rooms and ablutions can be used as common areas and utilised by a number of different clubs. So we really support the establishment of a community hub. We were advised that our best bet would be to try and piggyback on an existing community lease, and that's why we've gone to the Camera Club. So that's it from me. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Questions. First councillor is Councillor Kate. Okay. Councillor Charlotte.
Thank you, Chair. What is the ideal floor space that you are hoping for of the building?
At this stage, 540 square metres. That's, as I say, I approached some building firms, and I've asked the same question. A shell and a floor of 540 square metres, and we've had quotes back between 350,000 and 600,000 for a shell and a floor, and then there's the other costs on top of that.
And what are the other fundraising opportunities that you've identified?
Big one.
What are the other fundraising opportunities you have identified, if any?
Well,
funding opportunities.
We have to start on that. As I say, we're basically day two on a 1,000-day journey along this thing, and we do have a member of the shed who is reasonably well versed in raising finance, approaching the different organisations, the governments and lottos and whoever else we can tap.
Great, thank you.
If I could just add to that, Charlotte, the Whanganui Community Foundation are refocusing on welfare and climate change, and they've shown interest in this project.
Great.
Thank you. A final question from Mayor Andrew. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. That was great. There's a lot in what you just said in regard to what the men's shed offer to the community, and for me, I'll get to my question soon. The more we can build a sense of community right across our community, or a diverse community, whether it be by age or by ethnicity or there's a bunch of different ways you can dice up the community. But I wrote down the word community hub, which you used as well before you'd even said it. So I see a number of community hubs, whether they be regional or by demographic or whatever. So this meets that criteria perfectly. And I'm just wondering if Charlotte answered had the question around size of the facility. So 540 square metres seems quite small to me. It's about 25 square metres. 25 by 25, is that right?
15 by 36, probably.
15 by 36, yep. So 25 by 20, something like whatever it is. So, And if you're going to grow and you've got the camera club there, and is that big enough?
I think so. We had, at Wickstead Street, we had about 330 squares, which was proving to be too small. Where we are now, we've got quite a bit less. Why I concentrated on that size building will fit across the section. Will fit across the section at the racecourse end of the section. If we desire to go bigger, we'll have to come out sideways. That's providing that the boundary offsets, we've got to find that out, how far back we've got to keep off the boundaries, but 540 will fit across the end of that section.
Okay. Well, that's, yeah.
Can I just add to that? The Rotary Club would require 150 square metres, but that's providing we have the use of a common tea rooms and ablutions. Was that 150 in the 540, or is that on top of it?
It can be either at this stage. It depends, I guess, on how much money we can come up with. We might well have to cut our cake to size.
Yeah, well, my suggestion would be dare to dream big, because I you know, with the Rotary Club, the Camera Club, the men's shed, and I applaud you for having women in there as well, by the way. But maybe there's provision for another club. There's many out there, that, you know, floral clubs and knitting clubs and all sorts of different clubs out there as well, to create a real community hub. So it's so you've got a critical mass of people from different types of people, perhaps around the same age group, and there. So that would be my provocation, to dream big and create this community hub. So fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I believe that's the final question. So thank you, Ivan and Bob and Bevan. I totally agree about the men's shed idea. I see it working well elsewhere. I think it's got a wonderful benefit for this community. So I'm sure this will move ahead. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time, and we look forward to some help. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. I don't believe there's any resolutions to pass there. No. Thank you. So we'll move to 5.1, the point of entry business case update. Lance and Trish, come forward, please.
Right. Kia ora again. Before I go into this, I just wanted to, some of you would have picked this up, but I think it was quite cool that the community built the Surf Lifesaving Club, and then they were the first to present under this new process. So a little bit of nostalgia there, if you like, if you grew up out there like I did, and like many of you did. Right, so moving on to the point of entry business case. So it's a nice segue. It's kind of back to front, but you've seen sort of how this process, you know, it's great to see it starting to take some legs now. The community initiative part of this process is as important, if not more important, than the internal projects that come through, the nuts and bolts of infrastructure, if you like, and council business connecting now nicely into some of the community stuff. So I'm going to take the paper as read, but I've got a few comments, and then we'll go through a quick PowerPoint, well, it's a PDF now, slide, just to remind you of the process, if you like. And then we can, and then we'll be just touching lightly on the list of projects, if you like. So I just want to reiterate a couple of points. So this is not a session where we're going to deep dive into the projects, into the list of projects specifically individually. You'll have an opportunity to do that as the projects, in two ways. First of all, the links you'll see on the spreadsheet aren't live, so we're working on that. The plan is to have them live so that you can see them and the community can see them via the website. So we want to be as open and transparent as we can with this. As they come live, we'll let you know. It'll be soon. And that will mean you won't have 200 and something projects to go through as you get closer to the workshop phase before approving the final list at the Strategy and Policy Committee. So you will essentially be drip fed them, as will be the community, and they will be drip fed not intentionally, but in the way that they are processed essentially through the process that we'll touch on here. A couple of other points. So it's in the paper, but I just wanted to reiterate: asset management plan, the project's capital expenditure and the asset management plan are not part of this process. So they've already been approved through council as part of the long-term plan. By their very nature, they are a plan themselves. They are already covered, if you like. Like I said, you'll get the full list. So just and quickly to touch on, this year is essentially the catch-up year. So this is the first year of this new process, which is why there are approximately 200 projects coming through. There's a lot of rollovers, if you like, from previous years. In future years, there will be nowhere near that many. So this is the catch-up year. In future years, we can expect them to be a far more manageable number. So while the pressure will be on yourselves to read them eventually, the pressure is certainly on the staff to get them up to where we need to. Next year and years going forward, that pressure won't be quite as intense. So just in case you're worried that this is going to happen every year. You'll notice too and I guess this is one of the benefits of this process. In the spreadsheet that you see that you can't open up just yet in terms of the links, but you'll see it's heavily loaded to year 1 to 3. So even after only the first 20 projects that we've evaluated, we've already spotted that. So, historically that might not have been picked up until a lot later. So that's something that we're looking at and asking questions around already. Do these all need to be done in years 1 to 3, or can we actually spread them? Has thought gone into when they can be completed? So, already a positive of having this process in place. But I just wanted to put that to you in case you're worried that this is heavily weighted at the front. Right, if we go on to this slide, these slides that are up on the screen. This is just a short presentation, just as a bit of a reminder of the process. We'll cover the criteria, the decision-making matrix, a little bit about active participation, and then the timeline. So if we go on to the next one, thanks, Diane. All right, so as it says up there, so this is essentially putting a bit of science into the process that we think hasn't been there in the past, and ensuring that projects that come into the process are robust, have a bit of science behind them, and are aligned to the strategies of the council and yourselves as councillors, as opposed to perhaps what may have gotten through in the past that might not have been aligned. Ultimately, I think, and I'm going to say this, but one of the benefits of this process, we think, can result in a reduction in capital expenditure, because we're being smarter and more efficient with what we're spending. Again, anecdotally, we are seeing examples where someone might start on a point of entry business case and then sort of stop and go, actually, do we really, this idea, is it really going to get through this process? And so some of these things are already getting filtered out along the way. And I'm not saying this is an opportunity to cut projects and to cut council services, but it's just providing that robustness. But it's starting at points where perhaps you're not even going to necessarily see all the benefits of it. So my note here is that this is essentially about asking and answering some of the high-level questions really early in the process. The template itself is only a couple of pages, and it's horses for courses. So big project, put a little bit more effort in up front, but probably still only maybe 4, maybe 5 pages max, and a lot of that will be template. But generally, we're looking around what we've found so far in the first 22 or 3 pages. So, for accounts officers, staff time is maximum a couple of hours, and horses for courses. If it's a small project but needs to be in for the, to be assessed, then it's probably only going to take you 20 minutes, half an hour to complete. Just wanted to assure you that this is not overloading the admin and building up too much of what might feel like not achieving a lot and time being spent. This is the time we think is efficiently spent. And so, I just want another comment here. If we just move to the next one. Thanks, Diane. I'm not going to read through all these individually, but this just talks about the difference between a project and business as usual. I won't walk you through that. I think you'll have a pretty good idea around that. But I did want to touch on that, this does involve some of these projects are already, or a lot of them are already in the annual plan and probably feel like they've already been through a process. Time's moved on, as we all know. The world's changed economically across many facets. So this is just a good opportunity for some of those projects to ask those questions again, those big high-level questions, and reinforce that we have been robust and we need to continue on with this or not. Go to the next one. So the scoring matrix. So you may remember this was workshopped, and these are your key attributes that you saw forming up the scoring matrix. And if we move on to the next slide, Diane, this is the weighting system. It's a bit small up there, but essentially, as an executive leadership team, when we receive the business cases, we apply this matrix across the business cases, scoring them from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, obviously. And so far, having worked through 20 of them, the first one I think took us about 40 minutes, and now we're probably down to 5 to 7 minutes per as we go along, and we get better at it, and we're more consistent now, and we're able to start measuring apples with apples, or if it's an apple and a banana, then we make the adjustments. So, but we're finding it reasonably it's easy. It's not difficult because we have the structure in place, and we have that confidence that you've already agreed on those high level. Excuse me. When we do go through that session too, it is not necessarily just ELT. So if we need a subject matter expert in the room, we bring them in to help us work through it as well, and just to explain. So we've had a few. Lucy from the Splash, for example, with some of her ones, she's come in and sat down and talked us through it as well, to help us get clarity. So if we just want to move to the active partnership one, please, Diane. That one there, yeah. So obviously, this is hugely important for us, working with Hapu and Iwi. We've highlighted that at the top of the template, so it's to bring that to the minds of the author nice and early. But probably my comment here is, again, it's kind of horses for courses. I don't think Iwi and Hapu are going to be too interested in new RFID tags or system at the library, which is one of the projects that's on that list at the moment. Whereas obviously anything to do with the environment, or something a bit bigger, and certainly in the community or our sphere, then they're going to be it's going to highlight a lot earlier in the process that requirement for that active partnership. So while we're not necessarily going at that stage, because one of my mantras is we go with a blank piece of paper before we get too far down the path. It might not be quite blank, but it's still involving recognising that requirement for that partnership nice and early. And then just the last one, so it's going to take some time to embed this process. This is the first meeting where we're actually going through the first list, if you like. As it says up there, all capital works requiring funding for 24 to 34 long-term plan require a business case. We have a resource in Stuart. Sorry for calling you a resource, Stuart. Pretty impersonal. But we brought Stuart on board, and he's been fantastic in terms of internally leading this process. But also, you would have seen he left and talked to the community groups as well. He's the touch point, the initial touch point for the community groups. He's providing them a lot of support in terms of what they need to do to build their they're on. So there's an online form that, in creating that, he can see if someone's even a bit stuck, and we're reaching out to those people and asking if they need further support in completing that document. And then as it comes through, the next part of the process is it will filter through. So the men's shed one, for example, we will work out where that needs to go for a point of entry business case to be completed, to overlay their case that they put forward, so that it then can be assessed and join part of this process, then be added to that list that you'll eventually have to work through and decide where they sit in terms of the long-term plan. And then probably the last point around the time frame. So we are looking to have these completed at the end of September, but that's to get it into the long-term plan over the next few years, this next cycle. That's not to say that if people start, community come in after that date, they still won't be accepted in and join the process. They might just end up being processed a bit further on down the track. So there is, in that way, there's kind of, it's an ongoing thing. There's not a hard end date. I know a couple of groups are a bit worried they're not going to get it in by then, but as long as there's no panic on their project, then that's not a big problem. So I think, have I missed anything? Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Happy to take some questions now. I've probably missed a bit in terms of some of the process details, so feel free to ask any questions in that regard. But yeah.
Sorry. And now I'm not sure of the order here. Councillor Fallon.
I'll defer. Peter Oskin was before me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fallon. My question has been, well, a lot of my questions have been answered by your presentation, so thank you for that. The only last question then I had is, at the moment, they're all council projects, and understandably so. But my concern is when the community put in a project, how do we cope with council bias? Whereas if there was an independent person on assessing them, then at the moment it's the council that put all the weightings on the matrix. But I know if I was there, I'd want to put my project up higher than somebody else's. So.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I mean, obviously, part of that presentation that you just saw is part of helping them to get through that layer. And then, look, ultimately, it will come down to your decision as a group of elected members as to where, if you see community projects are tending further down than where you think they should be, then, when you're workshopping that in the future and making your final approvals, you might look at that and want to move them up. And in saying that, I think, although this is new and we're working our way through it, and we don't necessarily have an independent on the panel, we are having this scoring matrix in place does help with that objectivity, because part of Stuart's role, for example, is we're actually trying to help these community groups, and sorry, we didn't really get to it in the first paper, but we've reached out to 34 community groups so far, including all the ones that came and submitted or presented it through the annual plan deliberations. We've only had a few so far come forward, but we are, the goal with that is to help them build a case that is as strong, if not stronger, than the internal ones. So the plan is to actually help them to get as strong a case put forward. We don't want to spend time on something if it's going to fall over, and if we can see there's merit in it, then they will get the support they need to present the best case to help them score as high as they can. So. But I think, again, if we've got questions, Stuart will be in such regular contact with them. If need be, we can bring them into that session as well, as we do with the internal SMEs. So.
Thank you. The order that I've written down here is Councillor Kate, Councillor Ross, Councillor Charlotte, and Mayor Andrew. I apologise if that's not the order you put your light on. Councillor Kate.
Thank you. Apologies if you answered this question when I was out of the room. And we can just take it offline if you want to talk about it later because you've already covered it. In practical terms, you've addressed how we're partnering with iwi and getting their input into this process. But just in practical terms, what is it on the agenda for this? What agenda is it on? How does it actually happen? Those conversations and their input into this process.
Yeah, I think as you're aware, we have many avenues in terms of how we work with iwi, and you know, if it's highlighted early in the piece that this is a project where we need iwi participation, then that's going to provide the steer as to where is the best place to go with it. So, you know, for example, at the moment with the Leading Edge strategy refresh, sorry, what's it called now, the Wanganui Vision work, as a project, there's been the formation of an iwi steering group made up of hapu from around the district. That was the approach we took with that, for example. So identified the project, identified the need to involve iwi and hapu early, and then looked at what was the best avenue for that. Was it runanga level or hapu level? Hapu level, then formed that group. So it's kind of horses for courses depending on the project. And it would be, it's a bit of a, if there's uncertainty, then it would be seeking advice from either the executive or, you know, or our key partners that we're certainly really connected with through these different groups now. You know, it's a phone call to one of the Te Puaha Te Matapuao members if we need some clarity, and more than happy to help sort of guide us where we need to go. But the mindset we're more moving to is that hapu level, so hapu at place. So if it's a specific area, the first start point would be who's the hapu at place, and reaching out to them before we start anything. And certainly approach 3 waters are taking now.
Fantastic. I think that's a really good answer, because I started thinking you've got control of the sorting gate at the top, but as you went along, you answered that in terms of how you make sure that that's not happening. So my question to, maybe it's a comment, would be how do you, it seems to me that that is heavily person and relationship based. How do you make that system based? And maybe you can't. Maybe it needs to be reliant on those relationships and those people that are involved. And the systems approach is to actually make sure you've got those relationships in place.
Yeah, and that's, you know, and that, I guess that's one of the internal culture sort of challenges we're having too, is people would like it to be that black and white, that it's, you know, put a rule in place and we could just follow the rule.
Yep.
But we need to be more flexible in that. But we also need to create and have the culture that is the path that and this is the way we work, sort of thing. So
fantastic, really good. My other question is around at the end of the commentary in your paper. You've said there remains discretion in the process for elected members to adjust the priority of a project regardless of its scoring. However, a full set of point of entry scores is required for any decision making. So I'm just wondering what's going to protect these projects from a group of councillors on a certain day tinkering with the prioritisation and the points that they get to point of entry business case?
It's a good question, and it's probably has floated to our minds in reality. But what we didn't want was to have a list that you couldn't feel that you could adjust. So this is not giving a carte blanche, here it is, but do with it what you like. This is this is why we're talking to you now, and hopefully, you know, we'll regularly update you and provide you with those links, you know, as soon as we can, so that you can see that the right science has been applied to the decision, and at those future times, those shifts or those few projects that may need to move, there's not it's not going to be significant. It's as best as we can get, I think.
So would it be fair to say that this is not the place to change a ranking? Because I note that the recommendation is to receive this.
Yep,
so
that's
your
right.
Information gathering.
Yep, that's right. And because as the remaining 100 and whatever cases come through, that existing list of 20 is going to change significantly because others will slot in, above, under, around, and so we'll start to get a real picture then. I mean, there's going to be a bell curve, right? So there's going to be plenty in the middle that may need to be shifted here and there, but
They wouldn't get re-ranked though along the process. They would get in of themselves, but they would get re-ranked by virtue of other projects coming in with a similar number.
Yeah, essentially. Although I don't think you'd ever shut that down completely. If something changed in the future, that meant we had to shift or alter slightly. But you've given us those 5 key strategic sort of attributes. They've been weighted accordingly from 35% down to 5% at the other end. Unless that was to change significantly, then you shouldn't get any big significant changes in terms of their current ranking.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Sorry for taking a while to get to the...
Thank you.
offering to the...
Who was next? Councillor Ross.
I saw the CE dragging the microphone and thought maybe he'd be commenting. No? No. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Lance. From my point of view, I think it's a great initiative for the community. I think we saw 2 examples this morning, and the template was so user-friendly. So there's an example there of how it's going to go. I'm not sure if I understand the process correctly, because in my readings and in there, it said that POEs, point of entries, need to be in by September. Now, how does that, 2 things, how does that relate to the public? And currently, how do we as councillors and the public know where to go to start this process? Who is the point of contact? That kind of minutiae, the very beginning. Where are they going to go? Where do we direct them to assist them in this process? And is September important for people listening now in relation to the long-term plan, or can they put these whenever they need to?
So there's 2 parts to that. I've already forgotten one of them. The timing, but I think I touched on before, Ross. So that September isn't a hard end date. So that is just to get it into this next cycle of the long-term plan. But the community and internally, we can still put point of entry business cases in at any time. So, forever, essentially. And it will get assessed. And, if something was to come through that process and it was critical, something that really needed to be done urgently, you could expect that it will be assessed and it will make its way back this way in time. But yeah, the community can essentially put these in at any time now going forward. So I've got that. It came back. It eventually came back. Yeah. The cogs finally got there.
Do you want me to?
Yeah. Okay.
So at the moment, there's a link on the council landing page, which is community initiatives, and people can go in there and put their summaries in. It has Stuart White's contact details. So Stuart behind me is our main point of contact for working with community groups. There are other avenues that we have been able to use. So there's been about 34 community-based organisations that Stuart's been in contact with. So we've actively gone out and made contact with them. And out of those groups, we also know that there are some that are sending it to their wider groups as well. So likes of Sport Wanganui have also sent notification out to their members or groups that they know of that may be interested in putting in point of entry or summaries or community-led projects. So they can either do that. Some people are approaching members of council, and so they will also approach Stuart, and Stuart will make contact with them from there. So, for example, the community team, they get people approaching them for different initiatives. So then they will forward that to Stuart, and Stuart will make contact with them. So there's a number of avenues that they can put in their submissions.
So Stuart's the
Stuart is our man.
Thank
I
you.
mean, going forward, obviously, there'll be a process where Stuart's not going to be here forever. So, I was just having a quick look on the.
Stuart hopes he will be.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, it's
so
Wednesday night, he might win lotto tonight, and then we won't see him again.
I'll
so.
just push in here with a question because it seems to me that opening all this up to the public, there's going to be a raft of interest of people. Everyone's got their pet project that they want to talk about, and there has to be a filter. So where is the filter, and who actually says no? Because I don't think it's this committee that says no. Who is it?
So yeah, so the first line of the filter, if you like, and it's a good question, Rob, and we've had one of these already, is essentially that first review when it comes through on the system. So I've just actually brought it up now. It's on our home page of the internet, the front page of the external internet. But yeah, so after we had one come through that was essentially someone just wanting a service or wanting something, the council to do something. It wasn't a community-led initiative as such, and we recognised then there was some requirement to adjust the wording in the form to make it a bit clearer, which we did, and then just essentially went back to that person. I think Stuart or Trish went back and explained what you're asking for here is actually a different thing. You can still come into the council and ask for that, what it might have been, pick up the rubbish or whatever it might be, via other ways, via our phone call, and we passed on all the other channels they could come through, but that this was not the channel for that. So we think there's enough information on the website. It gives it's headed up community initiatives. It's got a nice brief at the front. It's got a how to start. It's got to complete the form, a link. And then once they complete that, then we can start seeing it as soon as they start typing into it. So if someone was going down a path where clearly this is not a community-led project initiative, we'll get in contact with them quite early to inform them actually this is the channel you need to go through. So that's kind of the filter, if you like, at the moment, Rob.
Thank you. Councillor Charlotte. Sorry. Yeah, just she would like to.
So I just wanted to make a couple of comments just to add to what Lance has said there. The online forms that we've created are also a bit of a filter. We've tried to make them easy for community groups to navigate so that it's not a burden to put something forward. But at the same time, we don't want to make it so easy that we get lots of frivolous things come through the system. The other point I'd make is that what Lance has just described to you there is about us as officers filtering out things that don't match the purpose of what we're trying to do. But that's all officers would filter out because we don't have delegation to say yes to these things. The counterfactual is we also don't have the delegation to say no to them. So ultimately, anything that we receive that is a credible fit to the purpose of what we're trying to do will come through to the Strategy and Policy Committee to be considered as part of the overall Capital Works programme. So whilst we're trying to make sure that there's a sensible match, we're not screening out and denying councillors the visibility of what's coming through from the community.
And just further, our plan too is that if, say, a project doesn't get through for whatever reason, it's not going to be deleted off the list. So it will stay on the list, and just out to the side it will show that it was considered and what the decision was, just in case it's to come back in the future, or just to have that visibility. We want to be as transparent as we can with this, so nothing will be hidden just because it didn't get through.
And can I just add that once it goes through the summary phase and it's presented here, or the groups have an opportunity to present here, it then gets assigned to a council officer who will then overlay the point of entry business case over top of that. Then it goes through an assessment phase through ELT, like all of the other point of entry business cases do, and then it gets added to the list. So there's a process through, so it's ranked fairly against every other project within council.
Okay. Councillor Charlotte.
Thank you, through you, Chair. It's a little bit unclear to me in the report, in the presentation, what is the sort of minimum, this is more sort of for an internal application. What's the minimum like cost request, or what triggers an application through this process?
We haven't intentionally capped a figure on it, so some of them are quite low value, but it was more the criteria of if it's in the annual plan capital expenditure, then it needs a point of entry business case. So so some things are relatively low value, but then the amount of effort to go into the point of entry business case will be minimal as well. But it means at least it's been assessed and confirmed it still needs to go ahead or not.
Prioritised, yeah. So, in your opinion, does this add more admin workload to departments or offices that are putting in applications in comparison to whatever the process was before?
It probably feels like it at the moment because we're playing catch up. But when I think about when it,
sorry, I sort of mean this more for people putting in applications than officers who are processing the applications.
Yeah. So the officer who's writing the point of entry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it may feel like it, but I think once they do a few, first of all, it's not that complex. It's relatively straightforward. Because for a lot of those subject matter experts, it'll be in their heads and they can just bang it down. But I think where the savings in the admin will come in is later on, when we're not trying to come back again and ask for more funding, or finding that projects weren't scoped well at the start. Issues have come up that weren't considered at the start. Even some of our bigger projects, perhaps, you could say if they were a little bit more effort up front, we might not have had to have the amount of admin down the track to play catch up to repair either damage. So I think there'll be admin reduction in the future, and also risk reduction by following this process, which ultimately means less admin.
And just one more question. So my understanding was that it will constantly be reprioritizing itself in terms of the list. Like, is that fair to say? So as more and more business cases come in, they'll be plopped in the list wherever you see them to be fit, and then and then it comes to us.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and like I said, you can expect there'll be a bell curve where there'll be, and we're seeing that already, where there'll be lots in this middle sort of range, and there'll be one of the challenges for yourselves to finalise that order, if you like. So,
just one more.
Last one.
And will even the sort of small cost jobs, are they all going to come through this committee, like the entire?
Yeah, if they're on the list, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Mayor Andrew.
Great, thank you. Great to see this underway, by the way, this process. So question, the first one is the sniff test. We've got this prioritisation criteria. And if you kind of stand back and look at it, does it feel about right that you've got this prioritisation? Does it feel like you've got the right things on top versus underneath?
Yeah, it does. Yep. Yeah, and we've obviously done a few now, but we've also tested them with our own work groups and our own leadership teams, and we're tending to all find a fairly within a few points of each other. So there's been a couple of points that we've had to clarify things where there's been a bit of confusion, but that's more in terms of just how people perceive or read something. So and we'll continue to work through that, but. No, it feels about right. Yeah, it feels about right, especially having this strategic aspect right up at that 35% sort of mark, and then the benefits, the overall benefits, if you like. So it's focusing on it's ensuring we're going in the direction where this council and this community has agreed it wants to go. Yeah. And it's quite obvious, and we haven't really had any like this yet, but it's quite obvious if it's not heading that way. If it's going this way, well, it's going to score very low in that, and then it's not going to find its way up the list. So it'll naturally find where it should slot. So.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. The other one, as well as the resourcing of the SMO, I think it's called this group that's reporting to you. Is that
The PMO?
PMO, SMO, it's been called different things, but PMO. Is that underway, or is that planned to be resourced?
Yes.
I just can't quite remember where it was at.
Yeah. So, I mean, attached to this process is obviously the establishment of the Project Management Office or the Portfolio Management Office. And we are looking to recruit, that should be going out very soon actually, through our channels in terms of advertising for a manager for that role. But ably supported at the moment by Trish, whose actual core role is with the waste team, and with Stuart obviously. So at the moment you're kind of looking at it in terms of the back office admin behind the scenes, if you like, and trying and presenting to you guys. But once we get that role on board, that will be another step towards where we're heading in this whole process of being better at bringing them in, being better at managing them, and then being better at evaluating them at the other end. So.
Good. Okay. And I know this is a bit of a speculative question, but there is some appetite, as we've discussed in recent times, around a capability to seek funding for council for community initiatives and I guess projects as well. Would you see? This is probably a little bit off topic, so happy to be corrected if I'm going a bit too far here, Rob. But would you see this role as fitting into the PMO?
That probably goes back to your SMO comment as well. So the Strategy Management Office, that's a specific area and role that we are in discussions about at the moment as we sort of get closer to shaping up how that whole sort of
Okay, so that works. I didn't realise that. So the SMO sits above the PMO.
I'll pass that to David, so you might be clearer than me. I'm waffling now.
Sorry, and the reason I asked that is because I'm just wondering how the flow of activity happens from strategy to Portfolio Management Office and execution.
So I'll jump on this one just because I suppose it is a concept that I've introduced to the organisation, so I might be able to answer it a little more clearly. So the PMO is a tangible team where there will be the portfolio manager that Lance has mentioned, who will in future pick up some of the work that Trish and Stu are doing at the moment, but also then provide oversight and a channel for reporting back to committees on our overall work programs and support the technical capability of our project managers. We then have our strategy and policy teams. We have some other teams that have functions that align with writing strategy documents themselves. Collectively, all of those teams form our virtual SMO, Strategy Management Office. And the concept is that we have a strong line of sight from when we make a strategy through to how we plan our action plans and our capital works programs, and then oversight when we deliver it, reporting back and lessons learned, so that when we iterate through our next version of strategy, we get better at what we do next time. So the funding role absolutely will fit in that SMO, whether it sits in the strategy writing part of the team or the project management team, something that we're still just kicking around as an executive team, but it definitely will be in there, because if you want to make a plan, you need to figure out how you're going to fund the plan before you commit to the plan. Pretty simple, hopefully. So it will form up over time. I think the D-Day for having resourcing fully in place for that is the start of the next LTP, because that's when we need to be overseeing the execution of the projects we've committed to with a good steady flow of reporting, particularly around benefits realisation. When we complete a project, do we actually get the benefits out of what we planned to do, or did we just build the widget but didn't get the benefits? Those are important lessons that we'll need to learn so that we continue our improvement journey over the next decade.
Right, so that goes on to my next question, final question, is around resourcing of the PMO. Resourcing is one thing, but having systems and processes to deliver and execute projects, is that anticipated to be up and running as well by 1 July next year?
Through you, Chair, yes. So Lance and his team have got some taskings from me to find and procure certain tools that we need. One of those will be a contract management, project management piece of software, so that we can actually have all of the work that's involved workflowed through an actual management system, and that will also facilitate the reporting that we need to provide back to council without doing the existing manual reporting. Mr. Furmore and his team also has a task from me to procure a contract management piece of software so that we can actually have proper controls and, again, workflowed automation of the actual procurement piece underneath the project management. So long answer to say yes.
No, great. It's not a question, but my only reason for asking these is that.
Sorry, Andrew, could you bring your microphone closer? I just find
Oh.
your voice is very soft, and
Oh,
I'm
is it?
struggling to.
Yeah. Okay, fair call.
Thank you.
No, the reason I ask this is because I think it's important for all of us to see that any ideas flow into efficient execution. Yeah. So, thank you. That's all.
Deputy Mayor Helen.
Sorry, I had a few frogs for breakfast and they keep coming up. Look, I think this is fantastic. It's stretching my mind a little bit with this new structure, and I guess it's just going to have to come through the proof in the pudding, and it's all be learning. But it looks great. My only concern is setting expectation in the community. And already around this office, around this table today, we had a presentation by the group, and we had comments by some of the councillors and the chair saying, I'm sure this is, this will be a great project, and yes, we should be, something to the effect of, yes, we'll be doing this. And it's like, hold the phone here. There is no budget assigned yet, and we're a long way away from giving somebody a score. So I'm concerned about how we're talking, councillors, and I'm concerned about the expectation we're going out to the public. So this is a question, how are we looking to manage that? I think we should be going out to the public. I think it's incredibly valuable to find out what our public want, because why else are we here? But we've got expectations we've got to manage.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Helen, and one we've put quite a bit of thought into, because you're right, we don't want people coming in thinking if I do this, then we get. The challenge is, so to answer the question, we've tried to make it reasonably clear on the online that this does not guarantee you in, and then we've also, through Stuart and our contacts with them, it's another repeated conversation, if you like. This is the process, and just to remind you, just to keep your expectations where they need to be, this doesn't guarantee you in, and it doesn't guarantee you when. This could be a yes, but year 7, or it could be a no, not at all. So trying to manage those expectations right from the outset. The reality and the challenges that doesn't always necessarily lodge, well with people. Particularly when they read something online, it doesn't necessarily. We know that people read the bits they want to read and discard the bits they don't want to take in. So, I think all we can do is constantly keep it to our the forefront of our minds that is a really key part of this process is setting those really realistic expectations.
I would like to say that I didn't detect any member giving any indication of support or otherwise to the projects. Supporting an organisation by saying that they're a great organisation, they do great work, and that they're for both the council and the community is not approving a project. And I didn't hear that mentioned today.
Did I hear it wrong? What?
So,
It's all right, just let it go.
the next, Councillor Kate.
Thank you. In the course of the discussion, I heard closing the loop and what I interpret as project post-mortems. Where are they in council?
So, through you, Chair, you're right, that is another way of describing what we plan to do. It will be through the PMO, that oversight through the portfolio manager, that will be conducting and coordinating what we're calling benefit realisation reviews, but postmortems is a
that's part of it.
yeah, that's all part of it. We are currently, without that resource, we're deliberately holding off doing any of them right now, but the goal is certainly, as some of our bigger, more significant projects start to conclude, the Sargent Gallery, for example, would be one that's well worth investing the time and resource into doing a benefits realisation review in due course, and they'll become a regular feature that we feed back through to the Operations and Performance Committee going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Final, you'll notice that I've been quite relaxed about whether the comments or whether they are questions. When we put the resolutions, I will ask if there's any final comments, but most of it should have been wrapped up in the way we've been asking our questions now. So, and Councillor Michael.
Mine's just a question, Chair. Thank you. Just to clarify, Dave, to the Chair, sorry. Are we independently purchasing software, or are we holistically looking at our needs?
So we haven't yet started the procurement process. So at this point in time, it's going to be a needs assessment about what we actually need in terms of a tool. Then it'll be going to the market and finding an appropriate solution, but in that order. Obviously, we need to look for those opportunities to integrate. So the contract management suite needs to be able to talk to our core ERP from a finance point of view, so that we don't just create more issues trying to bridge gaps between systems that won't talk to each other.
That was my fear. Thank you.
Okay. So just the final question from myself. We had two community groups here. Can you just, Lance, where to now with those presentations? Can you just say where that's heading and the timeline, please?
So they now will be given to the appropriate council staff member or officer, who will then overlay the point of entry business case on it. Yeah. And that will be presented through ELT and come on the list, as I said previously. So it'll be through to the end of September, where all the point of entry business cases need to be completed. Okay, so when is council going to be asked about a decision on those?
Strategy. Well, excuse me, I ate the same frogs. The decision is ultimately at that strategy and policy committee in the future, but you'll have opportunity to workshop prior to that. And like I said, you'll also have opportunity quite soon to start clicking and opening up those projects, so you can start getting a bit of a feel for them yourselves, so that when you hit those workshops, you're kind of ready to go. But okay. Yeah, your approval is at the strategy and policy committee.
Thank you. Okay.
Can I just make a comment that we're going forward for the next two aspiration committee meetings, that we're looking at maybe between 4 and 6 community groups wanting to present their ideas, community-led initiative to you as well.
4 to 6
at each meeting.
And just as a bit of a, so you can understand a little bit about this process. So you've got, this paper had to be in last week, whatever it was. This afternoon, ELT are assessing 22 more point of entry business cases. So they're starting to come in thick and fast, which is good.
Thank you. So now I'm going to put the resolutions that are on the screen. I'll move the first one from the chair. Is there a seconder, please? 5.1. And that the Aspirations and Projects Committee received the report Community Projects, which was the original presentation I understood that we weren't going to put a resolution for that, but I'm informed that we need to do this. Seconder, please. Seconder Peter. Are there any comments on that?
Yep.
Thank you.
Just a few items of feedback and comments. I think we've done a really good job as a step one on this. Hit a lot of the things that global companies have been doing for 30 years, that local governments around the world have started doing, that ministries have been doing for at least 8 years. So we're not that far behind, which is what I'm trying to say. This is a good thing. Any apprehensions councillors have need to be squashed. Look at the science on this. Or come for a cup of tea with me. So my test on this process was completed on February 2023. I look forward to my response on Solonet. I would like order of rejection because we're going to have hundreds of these over times, and for that we require our session to be completed first, prodding us to get going on our strategy, because you should be able to drop down and it should be linked to the objective. You should drop down, that should lead to our outcomes. You should be able to radio button the KPIs that you were saying you were linking to. And we should be able to automatically say that's actually going to do it or not. And if it meets the criteria, it's part of our groups, then it goes forward. If it's not, it's automatically pushed off to another side. Not deleted, I agree, but it should move on to somewhere else, like community funding, sports recreation funding, or just an operations item. I want a live backlog for everyone to see the backlog in order. We should be able to no hiding that. That means anyone can actually go into the project and see what it's about and upvote it. So if we see there's a project that had 455 upvotes, it's probably got higher priority than maybe we think. I want a continuous backlog where this committee only sees the most priority items at the top. So I expect thousands to hit our queue over the next year or so, thousands, and we will not see them, but it will be automatically reprioritized. I only want to see people when they're ready, personally. I don't want to see people when they're not ready for a decision to be made. I want to go through the process, and if they're prioritized, then come and pitch your business case so we can make a decision there and then. And then people know when they come into this chambers, we're going to say yes, no to the next stage there and then. This idea is to remove the single point of failure, i.e. us. We are a single point of failure, where outcomes can be achieved by other people for less than we can achieve ourselves. This is democracy and localism in action. It'd be nice if central government could take a cue from what we're doing here. But also about dynamically creating strategic agility. In other words, repositioning ourselves based on our residents and the data that we're seeing. Good job. Thank you. I also want to add to the significant benefit realization maintenance that we will need to do for this. We cannot have a sergeant gallery, yay, and then we don't look at it, but I also want to make sure that we are looking at benefit realizations of a $1,000 project as well. And the reason why that is because we can't just go and spend $1,000, $10,000, $10 million without verifying that we got the benefit out of it, our community got the benefit out of it. And I think this is why this committee is so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Michael. That's it. Appears to be no further comment. I'll put the resolution that the Aspirations and Projects Committee receive the report community projects. Those in favour, please say aye. Against, carry. I'll now move from the Chair 5.2 that the Aspirations and Projects Committee receive the report point of entry business case update August 2023. Is there a seconder, please? No. Councillor Glenda. Okay. Is there any comment? I just have one comment to make about this process. It certainly is a learning curve, and it does concern me when I see the minutiae of some of the projects that are on a piece of paper in front of us, and I really question whether the filter shouldn't be at a certain level of a delegation to officers and only come before here. So that's something that I would like to see raised at some time. The other point that does concern me is that this is not a committee of the whole. And that means that theoretically there's only 6 of us, I believe, who have a voting right on this committee. And that makes the strategy committee very important in this process, a committee of the whole, where potentially members of that may not have been to actually listen to the presentation of these projects. And I would strongly encourage your worship that this is made a committee of the whole, so that everybody is on every committee. Thank you. Did I put that? No. I'll put the resolution. Those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. And with that, the meeting is closed. Thank you for your attendance. Yes, you can certainly read a closing Karakia.
I oha, ki runga, ki ranganui. I oha, ki raro, ki a papatuanuku. Waka tairanga, ti kupu, ti kōrero, ti mahi. Ki te pō o te ware, he taonga, he mahi a muri. Ka puta ki te waio, ki te aomarama, homie, huie, taikia.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte.